So the purpose of why we're here today is to give you ways to optimize and leverage aspects of your clients' businesses so they can take more to their bottom lines. And of course, that's been your focus too, that or else you wouldn't be in those fields, in the field of being a CFO. So the panel of seasoned experts, we're going to outline 3 ways that you can actually do that. Over the next 55 minutes, we'll hear from our 3 panelists and you'll get your questions answered. And certainly you can add them to the chat and we'll stop periodically to even let you verbalize questions. In fact, this is a small group, so you can certainly raise your hand for a question also. And then we're going to allow people to set up for a brainstorming session so that if you have a particular challenge or question, you want to speak to any of the panelists one-on-one, we can set up some time to do that. So me, some of you know me, some of you don't, but I'm a business executive coach. I'm a facilitator. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've focused on coaching executives since 2006. I lead an experienced team that provides professional training and development for employees at all levels. And my clients get tons of ROI on their investment, and they achieve their goals in leading and empowering culture and delegation and work-life balance and a variety of different things like that. And now we've gotten to know each other a little bit, but Gershon came last. So let's just take some time for the 4 of you to introduce yourselves to each other so that you have a little bit more understanding of what you specialize in, what part of the country you're from, and just generally how you like doing work as a fractional CFO. So Scott, why don't you lead us off with that?
Sure thing. I just started my company in June, so I'm still kind of like establishing that company and branding and all of that. And the few clients that I've been talking to, it's just they need the tax portion of this, so that's what I'm looking to learn right now. And I guess I'm still getting my feet wet in terms of this business. I think Maui is more on that small micro CFO business level, so it's probably a lot different experience than everybody else here.
Thanks, Scott. Matt, why don't you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Siegel. I'm out here in San Francisco. I've been consulting now for about 2.5 years with a mixture of public and I would say very small private companies. My background's in insurance and financial services and not a ton of tax experience, so always looking to add on a little bit more. Apologies in advance. I also have to drop at the hour mark, so please don't take it personally when I slip away.
Okay, got that. Juan, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, Juan Ramirez down here near Fort Lauderdale, Florida with the Pro CFO Partners. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure who was on, about 50 CFOs from Chicago to New York to Texas down into South Florida. I have the South Florida region, and we work in 30 different verticals at the moment, and we have about $1.5 billion of revenue under our care. So it's about a 4-year-old company, always looking to add some new great CFOs that have no less than 10 years experience. And like I said, 30 verticals, so there's not much we do not cover as far as industries are concerned. Thank you.
Thanks, Juan. Gershon, go ahead.
All right. Thanks again for hosting, Jeri. I'm Gershon Margolis. I'm the founder of Imperial Advisory. We're a fractional CFO and consulting firm. We have a team of 6 CFOs, and we go into businesses and we help them make better, more informed business decisions. In general, we work with privately held businesses, so not much on the public side. And we work across verticals, but we have a lot of experience with staffing and staffing type companies, staffing and recruiting. And we also have a lot of experience, not necessarily at our firm, but all of our people had long, successful careers before joining us. And so many of them bring manufacturing experience. So we have a lot of manufacturing experience on the team, not that many manufacturing clients, mostly service businesses. We're also looking to to bring on more CFOs.
Good, thank you. What we're gonna do now is talk a little bit about our three panelists. And someone else just came, which is great. So Mark James, he and I are sponsoring this, putting this together. And he's an accomplished business improvement advisor and business speaker with 40 years of experience in workplace performance, channel effectiveness, and customer loyalty. As a founder and president of Performance Advisors Group, he leverages his experience to help B2B companies achieve sustainable growth and competitive advantage by eliminating barriers get in the way. Kaylin, I'm so glad you joined us. We just did some introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself? Okay, we'll let that go until you get a little bit better situated here. Then we have Dr. Mark Gershon, and he's a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt who has taught process improvement through its evolution from TQM until today. While he has won awards for his teaching and has taught this subject on every continent, he most enjoys coaching process improvement teams toward successful completion of their improvement projects. And then we have Bruce Kleski, Managing Director of the U.S., is a trusted tax advisor focusing on R&D tax incentives. He is considered an R&D tax expert, having managed over 600 corporate profiles. And Bruce's objective is to educate clients, identify direct and indirect R&D activities, and develop a transparent best practice strategy that will help clients generate cash flow for many years. Not a one and done thing, but for many years. Okay, to move forward, as a way to set the stage of how each of our three panelists can help a manufacturing, construction, and machinery or automotive business, I'm going to set up the first question as a scenario. Suppose each of us in the audience is a CEO or senior leader of a manufacturing company. What would you each do to make the company take more to the bottom line? And so, Mark Gershon, I'm going to ask you to go first and give you the spotlight.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess since everyone here is in finance and not really operations, I should start by emphasizing the link and dependencies between the two. First of all, if you think you're in finance and are not involved in operations and don't have any operations, I guess keep that to yourself and don't tell anybody and hope you keep getting paid, because if you're doing something, that's operations. So operations is not just the operations department, it's anybody who's doing anything, and anybody who's doing anything has processes that they can improve. In terms of the areas where I think I most hit the bottom line of companies, I think I would start with scheduling. The scheduling of the work really determines what the costs are going to be in the end. And a lot of companies focus too much on one strategy versus another strategy. The main two, I guess, would be schedule your work as it comes, or the other one would be level it out and try to smooth out the work. But what I find with manufacturing companies is if they choose either of those strategies, and sometimes they're on target, but other times, depending on what kind of work's coming in and what kind of orders, they're way off. So what I stress is that companies adjust their schedules so that they're scheduling in a way that responds best to the work that they're going to have in the next weeks or the next quarter or so forth. So constantly readjusting scheduling strategies. The advantages of that is that it's going to cut down overtime. It's also going to cut down last minute requests for expedited shipping. which is very expensive. So in both of those areas, we certainly help companies improve their bottom line. Related to that is materials management. Materials are overhead, inventory is overhead. So mostly we want to find ways to reduce inventories and reduce those overhead costs. One company I was with, though, we saved $2 million annually, and the guy who brought me in got upset because he said, your strategy raises our inventories a little bit. So, I mean, there's a trade-off. Sometimes that might be the best way to go. But he said, my bonus is based on levels of inventories, and you just killed my bonus. But he's the one who brought me in. And I think we accomplished what he wanted, but they have to change their incentive structure, I guess. The third area where I'm very involved, and most involved probably, is the continuous improvement side, the quality side. And there, of course, the emphasis is, people say there's never time to do things right, but always time to do them over. I don't want us to have to do anything over. I want to make sure we get things done right the first time. And the continuous improvement side of that is over time, making those things better and better and better year by year. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Going to ask now Mark James to speak about what he contributes in a manufacturing scenario.
Excuse me. One of the things that I have discovered in my career, working with different organizations in all different verticals, and especially in manufacturing, is that the level of communication in an organization is critically important, and quite often it gets missed or it's off the mark. In fact, a couple of unsettling statistics I like to refer to prove up the point. Conference Board research has found that for a typical organization, nearly 2/3 of the employees are only 1/3 as productive as they could be because they simply don't understand what they're being asked to do. Likewise, research by the Human Capital League has found, again, for a typical organization, that only 42% of the employees in a typical organization know their own values, mission, and vision for that company. So if we accept that values, mission, and vision sort of tell the world what to kind of expect when you interact with this organization or this business, if more than half the people in the organization don't know what those things are, it's a little hard for them to deliver on it. So, and quite often communication gets overlooked, and maybe there isn't an obvious connection to profitability and the bottom line. But if most of your people are suffering from lowered productivity because they simply don't understand what they're being asked to do, that has an obvious impact on the bottom line. And my specific recommendation would be that as a leader of an organization or in a role that's such as yours and you're advising your clients, is to make sure that the company is always on guard to answer 5 questions that employees are always asking to set the stage for the appropriate amount of communication. And those 5 questions have to relate directly to behavioral science, and having the right answers does impact employee performance. The first question is making sure that employees understand in clear and unambiguous terms what is they're supposed to be doing. What's in the job description, but beyond that, there should be a good understanding and clear and unambiguous as to what people are to do in their job and their set of responsibilities. The second question is, how should I do it as an employee? Here we have obvious implications for learning and training and making sure that people have the right knowledge and skill sets. And more importantly, not only having the right knowledge and skill sets into their heads and being able to retain it, but make sure that people have the confidence to use what they've learned. I've discovered and found that a lot of training fails because people will learn it, they'll retain it, but they're not comfortable using it. So the training has not succeeded. The third question is what I call the performance question. How am I doing at it? Need to make sure that people are getting constant feedback so they know how they're doing in the moment as much as possible, so they aren't going off in paths or in directions or being distracted, which take their eye off the ball and productivity and the customer experience and ultimately profitability. The fourth question that needs to be answered for employees that they're always asking or wondering is, why should I do it? We could also state this as the motivation question. What's in it for me to do this? And here, good recognition and incentive practices are very important in helping to answer that question. And the last and final question that should be answered is, where am I going? What's my future here as an employee? And here, it's very important for managers and leaders to make sure that they're constantly talking about opportunities and informing employees in ways that they can improve their skill set so that they can advance on their journey with the organization. So that's how I would address, maybe not in a direct way that's overtly obvious, but at the end of the day, communication is very important in making sure those kinds of questions minimally are being answered and employees have the right answers. Because as we know from the laws of physics, nature abhors a vacuum. I would also contend in a business or any organization that with the lack of communication information, people are going to make it up as they go, and they may make the wrong decisions or go down paths or do things that would not lead to the results you're looking for. So that's how I would respond to that, Jeri.
Yeah, thank you. And now, Bruce, I'm going to ask you to answer the same question. What is it that you can do for a manufacturing company? How do you impact the bottom line?
Thanks, Jeri. Good to see everybody. My expertise has been, it's called the R&D tax credit. What in the world is that? Okay. Who can get it? Why, how, when, where? What does that mean? I've been helping companies for many years obtain tax incentives. R&D tax credit is the most robust incentive available in the United States. Okay. What is it? R&D tax credit was founded 1981 by the Reagan administration, and the purpose was to keep jobs in the United States. It rewards companies for hiring technical people. It's kind of a jobs credit. Okay. What's the benefit? It reduces state and federal income tax. That's it. There are so many misconceptions on what R&D is. Is it difficult? We'll get audited, we'll get overturned. The biggest driver of the R&D credit is people and their wages. It's a 14% credit. If you do any type of R&D activity, which means process improvement, product development, engineering, design, construction, innovation, intellectual property, those are R&D activities. Okay. So if any employees do any of those activities along with software development, if they do any of these activities, you're entitled to get a credit which will reduce income taxes. If it's a S Corp, LLC partnership, it flows through to the partners. Okay, so what a great benefit. And the law is written to where you can go back 3 years and get refunds. If you can't use the credit because you don't pay enough income taxes, it can carry forward up to 20. There's a great benefit. Typically, our clients will get anywhere between 20, 30% tax savings. So this is, again, there's a misconception of what the incentive is, but it's really about process improvement. Okay, thanks.
Okay. I'm going to ask the same question now. What if one of your clients happens to be a construction company, and what could be, how could that bottom line be impacted as well? And so, Mark, I'm going to ask you if there's any differences or any special things that would happen with a construction company who use the Lean Six Sigma that you offer.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, but the main thing is a very big difference. In construction, you're not doing repetitive work. In construction, you're doing one-time work, which is called projects. So focusing on project management, the biggest contribution we can make is to make sure that projects are set up in a way that the schedule could be carried out, they're realistic schedules, and they'll get done on time. And that's the key. The big reason for cost overruns in projects is that they're not done on time. Things slip, targets aren't met, and if we can set up a good schedule for a project, which is really so simple to do and people don't do it, then we can get our projects done on time. I keep hearing from construction people that, oh, if a construction company tells you they're going to finish by this time, add a third or add a half to the time length, and that's when they'll be done. And that's ridiculous. You have a schedule, you should be able to follow the schedule if it was a good schedule. So that's the main thing. I see too many construction companies throwing resources, not worrying about costs anymore, just throwing resources on things at the end to meet a deadline, especially where there's penalties. You know, at this time of year, they're all trying to finish construction projects on stores for the Christmas shopping. They get penalized if they're late because those stores lose business. And they throw money at it just to get it done, when if they had just followed an organized schedule from the start, they wouldn't have to do that. From the regular operations side, though, construction companies have a lot of standard processes they follow for getting drawings approved, for permitting, for materials acquisition. And these processes are generally figured out as you go instead of standardized processes that should be in place. So just like in manufacturing and in service businesses and in any administrative application, they have processes that can be improved as well. So here I would, in manufacturing, I emphasize the process improvement. Here I would emphasize the project management, and secondary, the process improvement.
Thanks, Mark. Mark James, I'm going to ask you the same question. How does what you're doing impact construction companies?
Well, my response for manufacturers is pretty much the same for construction, because we're talking about people in an organization. I would add on top of that for construction firms, but this is really true of any organization, for leaders and managers to make sure that they're having constant dialogue, and having dialogue to set up a scenario where they're listening to what's going on, because the people on the street or on a construction project, they're the eyes and ears of the organization, and they're going to know and see things before maybe a leader is able to see or know those things. And the only way that they can quite often be surface those things is for dialogue. I urge or advocate the practice of what I call the 13X rule. The 13X rule is basically whatever your current cadence is in communicating with your team or teams or your employees, you should take it up by 13 times. And to put that into perspective, if you're having the equivalent of a town hall meeting, or you're meeting with your construction team or your project bidders or people doing your engineering takeoffs, whatever the case may be, and you're doing it on a quarterly basis, taking it up by 13 times means doing it weekly. And it falls pretty much in line with that old adage that if you see or hear something 8 times in a row, or hear it 8 times, you're more likely to commit it to memory. In the communication world, it's 13X is really what the goal should be in terms of the frequency. Take it from where you are now up 13X. And in that process of having that dialogue, setting up dialogue and asking questions so that you're learning on a constant basis as opposed to telling them necessarily. And I would also advocate listening just 1 minute longer when you're communicating with a team or an individual. Listening just 1 minute longer does a couple things. Number one, it raises the chance you may pick up one more bit of intelligence you didn't know before that will help you in your role as a leader. But also it communicates to that employee or those employees that what they have to say is important to you. And that has huge impacts on engagement and a sense of commitment to not only the manager, but to the organization. And that leads directly to a higher level of trust between management and employees.
All those aspects of any job or any project are really important. That engagement and that trust, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, they're universal. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't apply to any particular vertical.
All right. And Bruce, how does it impact what you do impact construction companies as well?
First thing, I concur with what Mark just said. thing I do and our team does, we listen. Okay. We listen. I want to get an understanding of our clients' business initiatives. I want to understand what makes them better, stronger, cheaper, faster. Why do their clients hire them? Once I get an understanding of their business, what they're trying to accomplish, then I can apply different R&D incentives, activities to their business. For a construction company, for a manufacturing company, a buzzword is alternatives. Do they have options? Is there experimentation? Is there uncertainty of an outcome of a project or an activity? Are they doing design work? What about materials? Let's see, what else? Architectural activities. All these are R&D activities. And what I want to do is find out, I ask the questions, I go backwards. Why did your customer hire you? What are you doing for them? Will it work? What happens if it doesn't work? Who takes the risk? That's how we determine a successful R&D project. In the construction sector, it happens to be one of the most of our clients get over 30% tax savings per year. So it's kind of a hidden gem. So it's one of the best sectors out there. It's better than manufacturing. Well,
All right, so all of you CFOs, you now know that you can get a 30% tax savings for your construction companies potentially. So that's a good thing to know, right?
yes.
So welcome, Cheryl. I'm glad you were able to join us. Welcome, Callian. It's great that you were able to join us. We did some introductions in the beginning. Would you like to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you're from? Go ahead, Cheryl. Put yourself on mute. Yeah.
It wasn't working. Hi, I'm Cheryl Mucha. My company is CFO Your Way, and sorry for being late. I couldn't find the link. I am in northern New Jersey, and we provide fractional accounting services from bookkeeping to controllership to CFO for companies in pretty much any and every industry across the spectrum. So yeah, we work with them on as needed basis and fit into their team where and when they need us.
Thank you. And I noticed that some people have put their LinkedIn in the chat, so feel free to do that, or even an email if you want to. There's no reason why we all can't be communicating with each other. And Callian, did you want to say anything at this point? You're welcome to. All right, so what
Huh.
Oh, go ahead.
I think you just came in. Yep.
Okay. No, actually, I got to we enrolled with FI group only recently. I got the link for this meet. I haven't I don't know much about this. I thought of seeing the views of other panelists.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad that you're here. And
Thank you.
and do you have a particular company?
Yeah, our company name is Rodney Hand. It's a private company, manufacturing entity. Yeah.
What do you manufacture?
We manufacture gates for water bodies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's...
All right, so I have just put in the chat a link to a Google Drive where all our handouts are. So the four of us, three panelists and myself, we create a zip file with all the one page each from our businesses so that you can know more about us and have contact information and be that much more well informed about the kinds of things we do in our businesses. Hopefully it provides some value. And then one of the things that we're doing as a function of this is we are offering a brainstorm your challenge session. So if one of you has a challenge with a particular client or with your own firm that you would like Mark James and I to brainstorm with, we'll, by clicking on this QR code, which I'm going to put up in the chat in a second, you can schedule a 1-hour session with us, free, no strings attached, and we'll brainstorm with you some possible solutions or offer you some resources. And at that point, you can say thank you very much, or we can say, you know what, you really should talk to Mark Gershon or Bruce about that, and we'll bring them in, and you can then have some individual time with Mark Gershon or Bruce of the kind of resources that would really be beneficial to you. So I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat. So if you want to take a picture of that with your phone, and it takes you to a scheduling thing in Calendly, which allows you to then have follow-up session with us, that would be great. The other thing I wanted to tell you about is that this is part of a 3-part series. So the first one has to do with enhancing your bottom line, but our next part that we'll have Mark James and I will put on with 2 other panelists is about attracting and retaining staff. And that's going to be on January 25th. And you'll get notices about that. And then the third one that we're going to have on March 21st is about business continuity and succession planning. And we'll have some experts on that one in addition to Mark and myself, so that you'll be able to get some expert advice on business continuity and succession planning. And you'll get a special invite to that because you're now on our list. The other thing I wanted to ask you is about time of the day. So we had this at 4:30 East Coast time, 3:30 Central time, and we don't know if that's the best time. Would you prefer something more at lunchtime? If you would prefer something more at early in the morning, that's up to you. So if you want to put into the chat what you think might work best for you, we would really welcome that kind of feedback, whether like 9 to 10 or something around noon or late afternoon like this. Please put that into the chat, what you prefer, so that we can schedule that according to our audience's preferences. And any questions you have, you can put into chat, or we can take them as, just by raising your hand there physically, or, or using the reaction button. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some questions that we already had prepared that we think might be helpful to you. Thank you, Juan and Cheryl, so that you for putting your feedback in there. Mark, James, what challenges come with change management?
There are a couple. One, maybe first and foremost, is that especially when change occurs within an organization, it triggers a fight or flight response on the part of people. And the important thing to note is that it isn't the change itself that causes people to fight or flee from a change. It is a loss or the potential of a loss that people associate with the change that they're reacting to. So it's important to understand when change is afoot or is imminent, is to make sure you're addressing what needs to be addressed to overcome that resistance to change. And there's a simple formula that I use that was actually developed by a couple of gentlemen, and it's called the formula for change. And there are 3 variables that need to be in place in order to overcome that resistance or that fight or flee response. First, there needs to be recognized dissatisfaction with the current state. People need to recognize and all agree that what we're doing now, we can't sustain this. We need to be doing something different going forward. The second variable that has to be in place is there has to be a very clear vision of the future that's been identified and communicated to everybody. And then lastly, the third variable is there has to be a concrete plan to get there. If you have dissatisfaction with the current state and it's agreed by everyone, if you have a clear vision of that future state to get to and a plan to get there, you'll overcome resistance to change almost every time. If any one of those variables is missing, you'll struggle to overcome the resistance to change. The second thing that I would comment regarding change is that just as you don't leave your culture to chance, you shouldn't leave change to chance. I like to use the analogy that leaving your culture, for instance, to chance is like giving whiskey and the car keys to teenage boys. It can lead to very undesirable outcomes. Same thing can happen with change if you leave it to chance and you don't actively manage it. So change needs to be actively managed with a plan. And there must be, third most important thing, there must be a lot of communication. You're going to notice that as a theme today in a lot of my answers, and transparency.
Thank you. Mark Gershon, how does training fit into the bigger picture?
Training by itself doesn't fit in. It has to fit, it has to be part of a bigger picture. You don't say, I'm going to do some training and then go out and do it and hope some good comes from it. You're supposed to say, what are we trying to accomplish? And then see if any training is required to help accomplish that or is helpful in accomplishing that. So the first is your business goals and your programs that you're trying to implement. And then you incorporate training as part of that process. Beyond that, though, when there is training, whether part of a process or standalone, it's going to die if on the last day of that training it ends and there's no follow-up. So what you have to have with training is some ongoing workshops, if that's different than training, or actual implementation. So I like to get involved with coaching people after training and kind of guiding them. I know with a lot of the companies I work with Lean Six Sigma, they don't have black belts on staff. I kind of become the part-time black belt. I meet with a group for an hour a week or so to guide them toward completing their improvements and making things better and getting the training incorporated on an ongoing basis in their companies. My company, because most of my work has been training, is called Training Institute, World Class Training Institute. But the part of the work that I love the most is working with companies to make things happen. I know I do training in project management, and they don't incorporate it into their projects unless we have that follow-up. I work a lot with the Asian Development Bank in Manila. Their whole thing is to help third world countries and fund them to have projects to improve standard of living. And those projects don't get done because they don't have the project management. And I see that in every company I go to. Very talented people, very motivated people, dedicated people, idealistic people in the case of NGOs. And doesn't get done. And it's not because they don't want to get it done. They don't know how. They don't know how to structure it.
Thanks, Mark. And that must be very frustrating when people get training, but then they don't get guided to use and apply their training. That's, you can see, frustrating from the part of yourself as a trainer and part of their part as recipients of the training. And I see that in some of the work that I do as well on training, and then it just lays there and it doesn't really get applied, or people don't get coached to how to make it work.
Well, one of the
Bruce.
questions you asked Jeri about that everyone was supposed to answer coming in here was how they get improvements, whether they do it themselves or they use somebody outside. And I have to say, if you rely on anybody outside your organization to do an improvement, no one's going to buy it. Nobody's going to accept it. It's not going to get done. Improvement has to come within the organization. It has to be done yourself. Can you get outside help to push that along? Yeah, but the changes have to come from within your organization.
Thanks, Mark.
Hmm.
Bruce,
Yes.
what questions do people usually ask you?
The biggest objection to obtaining a R&D credit is time commitment. How much time is it going to take? They're busy running their business. What I do is we kind of do it backwards. I have a team of operational people that are engineers, software developers, tax, legal, and we learn about their company. And we learn about all aspects of it, what their pain point is, what are they trying to accomplish. So the biggest hidden objection is always time commitment and risk. Okay, are we going to get audited? Okay, the key to a successful R&D study is documentation, understanding what our clients do, make sure they follow what they call the 4-part test. It's the IRS guidelines. So part of our team is engineers. I'll have an engineer talk to their engineers, and we extract information out of it. One of the things also I want to find out on time commitment is so important. I keep mentioning this, is how much time can they devote to it? I'll structure a program or a study to meet their needs. Okay, it's not about me. It's about what do they want, and I want to do a successful project. It creates a best practice, and by listening to them, what they're trying to accomplish, we incorporate everything that they're looking for into the study. Okay, it's not about us anymore. It's about what they need. What solutions can we help them with?
Thank you. And now I want to ask Cheryl or Juan or Gershon or Scott, do you have any questions the last couple of minutes before we wrap up?
Well, I'm just gonna reinforce the communication, because like Mark Gershon, you said about bringing in training, going through training, and then no one carries through with it, and it just kind of falls through the cracks. It's the communication from the top and holding everyone accountable that will make it successful.
Yeah, a key thing that Mark James said when the question came up about construction was that he always emphasizes having communication more often. That's always going to be the key. In a project, it has to be almost constant, not on intervals.
Right.
Everybody has to be in line to make things work.
Right. And I think it's the accountability, though, too, to make sure that everyone knows what's expected and the by when, and to hold them to that.
Yeah, that's two sides of the same coin, right?
Exactly.
That's where the trust comes in, because I trust you, but I trust you because you've proven you're accountable. You say you're going to do things when you say you're going to do them, and also that psychological safety that comes with caring about people, number one, and then communicating well with them, number two. Certainly a big part of everything that we're talking about today. Communication's a big thing for me too, as an executive coach.
Yeah. One of the traps that a manager, especially on a local basis, can fall into is what I call management hubris. They suffer from management hubris, and you see it with leaders or managers that come into a role for the first time, and they become to believe that now they're a manager or a leader, they have to have all the answers. And the best leaders out there recognize that no, they don't have to have all the answers. They just need to know how to have dialogue and get the answers out of the people that live it every day. And that's the employees, it's distribution channel partners, it's even customers. So that dialogue and communication is very important to get the answers. So I see it all the time. It's a trap that a lot of managers fall into, to think that they have to have all the answers. And no, they don't.
This
Mark
conversation-
James.
Okay.
With-
No, I was just going to say this conversation is so timely. I just finished reading this book last night, and everything that we're talking about here is in this book.
Yeah. Lencioni's
Absolutely.
got good stuff. He writes well.
He does.
He writes well about this stuff.
Go ahead, Gershon.
Quick question. Mark James, you're the one who mentioned the
X rule.
13X rule.
Yeah.
Do you find that some of the other counterparties push back when you try to push 13X, or that your clients' counterparties push back? Like, do they have time for weekly calls when they think they need quarterly calls?
Yeah, that's the objection is usually I don't have time. And my retort to that is, if you're not interested in knowing what's truly going on, then maybe, yeah, you don't have time. I would contend that you should figure out how to make the time to be in touch with the people that are your eyes and ears. I mean, if you think about military history, one of the problems with Robert E. Lee at Gettysburg is that in those days, the cavalry was the eyes and ears of an army. And when and the Gettys, pardon me, I have a cold, which is why I'm doing this. So I apologize. In those days, the eyes and ears of the army were the cavalry, and the Union Army and the Confederate Army came on the battle scene quite by accident. And Lee didn't know what he had in front of him because his cavalry, led by Jeb Stuart, was off gallivanting around Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, trying to make a name for himself, so the historians say. So he was sort of blind. And your employee, to bring it forward to today, the employees in an organization are the eyes and ears of that organization. No one manager can be in all places at one time. So my retort would be, you think you may not have the time, but don't discount your most valuable asset in terms of intelligence to give you information so you can make better informed decisions. But yeah, it's a fair question, and I think I know what you're getting at. There can be objection to it because, hey, I'm so busy, I got so many things to do. It really comes down to prioritizing where you need to spend your time.
Right.
Yeah, getting those
Right.
feedback loops in place, whether
Yes.
they be formal or informal, is really important to running your company, no matter what you're talking about, and no matter what the size or no matter what industry it is.
Mhm.
It's a great
Okay,
question.
we're gonna wrap
Thank
it
you.
up at this point.
I think Scott had his hand raised.
Scott, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Scott?
he did. Yes, he did. Yeah.
Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody for all that information, and especially like the R&D detail was very informative. I can see a lot of advantages there. And I guess my question is, would you say that there's still a lot of other tax advantages that we didn't talk about this time? And if so, is there a resource or a location where we could go to get like a high level summary of it, just sort of like that summary that we got of the R&D tax credit?
A lot of the tax incentives are state.
Okay.
They're state and federal, and I mean there's so many. I focus on R&D for a specific reason because it's been so robust. Even though it's been around for 40 years, half the companies don't realize they qualify. It's a misconception, R&D. You think watch things explode. No, it's really about process improvement. So that's why we focus on it. But what I try to do is talk to the business, the tax people or the business owner, find out, what they're looking for, what type of tax position they're in, where are they located. Then I ask some questions, and that will queue up, what's available to them. Is there a source? Good question. I don't know.
You can also read the tax code if you really want to.
Oh my God, yes.
Scott, but that's why it's important to work with someone like what you have here, because sometimes these fundings run out. Like I've worked heavily with the WOTC credits, the Workers' Opportunity Tax Credit. But when the funding runs out, you may not be aware of it, and so it's important to kind of get guidance on that. But that's a very good one as well, when you hire different
Yeah.
groups into your company.
There's so many changes. There's so
There's
many changes
So many
also.
changes, yeah.
I mean, it's just our Congress is so dysfunctional that things change minutely, and it's hard to keep up with it, fortunately or unfortunately. But that's a good way to take advantage of some of these incentives. There's a lot of energy credits, and it's a lot of it's localized. So, and in some of our industry sectors. So, tough question to answer, right on the spot. So,
Thank you so much. Very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking that. Anybody else have a question?
No. Thank you all for
Yep, good here.
putting on a great event.
All right, so I'm going to
Thank
give
you.
each panelist a chance to do a 1-minute wrap up. And then we'll, I'm going to also put this in the chat again in case anybody wants to sign up for a 1 hour, absolutely free, no strings attached, brainstorm your build your challenge for yourself or one of your clients. Anyway, Mark Gershon, give us your 1-minute wrap up.
Okay. Well, Bruce kind of gave a list of all kinds of activities that would apply for that tax credit. And all I kept hearing was project, 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 and project. Every one of them required project management. Doing the project will get you that tax credit, but doing the project successfully would get you a lot more than the tax credit. So that's what I'd like to emphasize. And the same on the process improvement side. You want to be investing in things that are going to pay off in your real operational bottom line, and then get the tax credit on top of that.
And I just want to point out that Mark not only is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, he's also a PMP and trains other PMPs. So you should know that he has that in his quiver as well. Mark James, your final wrap up.
Yeah,
words.
I'll be very quick. But first, I want to say I just want to put a plug in for Cheryl Mucha. She and I are actually going to be doing a joint presentation through CPA Academy in December for continuing education, and the topic is going to be move the needle in your business by solving the employee engagement and retention conundrum. So if you're looking for CPA credits, you got to squeeze them in for the end of the year. We'd love to have you. And I'm sure you're probably all familiar with CPA Academy. So looking forward to doing that with Cheryl on December 6th. My parting words would be, again, around communication. There are 2 truths of human behavior that I believe, and based upon my observations doing what I've been doing for 40 some years with all clients in all different kinds of industries, 2 truths of human behavior that you and your clients can turn into your ally. And that first truth is that what gets talked about in this world is what gets done. So dialogue and communication and conversation around things are where things tend to get done. And then likewise, what gets measured in this world is what gets done. So making sure that you have the appropriate level of metrics and there's discussion around them and measuring them. And the tip related to that, workforce accountability study has found that if you limit the key metrics to 3 to 5 that you're asking people in general to track, you reduce employee confusion to almost 0. Now, I would say the exception to that would be like in Mark Gershon's world, where you're looking at process analysis and there may be a lot of different things you need to measure. That's on a project-related basis. But overall, in terms of ongoing metrics for the business, no more than 3 to 5, and you'll keep employee confusion to nearly 0. So those would be my parting words of advice today.
Thank you. And Bruce, I'll let you fill in that too.
Okay, my takeaway is misconception. The R&D incentive is not about R&D, and it's about business operations. If you understand business operations, what makes a company tick, you can get a tax benefit. It's less about tax, it's more about business operations. And what my company, the FI Group, has done, we built a team of experts that will reinforce that. They put a lot of energy, they educate on this stupid thing called R&D, whatever that is. And so you can minimize taxes. That's the whole crux of our whole system. So it's say we take, a lot of time on educating and getting, it's not risky, and it's, make sure they understand what we're trying to accomplish, some business solutions. So
Thanks, Bruce. I just want to remind everybody that we'll be sending out a notice about January 25th when we're talking about attracting and retaining staff, and March 21st when we're talking about business continuity and succession planning. I see a couple of people put things in the chat about what hours are most appropriate for them and the way they work. Thank you. If you haven't done that yet, feel free. And of course, we put the QR code for the Brainstorm Your Challenge session, so feel free to take a picture of that and pick a time slot. I'm want to thank you so much for coming and spending this hour. You could have been a lot of places in this last hour, but I'm glad you were here. And I look forward to seeing you again. Please go to the link that has the handouts. You can save the chat by hitting those 3 dots at the bottom. And I'll stay on until I know that everybody's off, so I know that you've had a chance to save the chat. And with that, I'm going to bid you adieu and thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
good to see everybody.
Yep.
Thank you all.